Welcome, I'm Tobias Kuhn, and in this series of tutorial videos, I will explain to you and demonstrate the nanopublication ecosystem and the Nanobench. And today we're going to mostly focus on the nanopub ecosystem on a general level. And well, let's jump right into it, and I'll start right away from showing you some concrete stuff you can explore yourself online. So you can find the links, all the links that are needed, and that I'm going to go through also in the description of this video. To get a first quick idea of the decentralized nanopublication ecosystem as it exists now, this Nanopub Monitor is a good starting point. And all these things are still very much in motion and preliminary, and parts of it very still kind of prototypical. So these things are supposed to change quickly, and maybe if you watch this video a bit at a later point, things might look already a bit different. Now, this Nanopublication Monitor shows you the kind of rough location and type and some more information about a number of online services. And they have some sort of color coding, and the dark yellow ones here are kind of the most basic ones. These kind of store the raw data, if you will, and well, they're distributed in different places. And there is a number of differently colored services that are query services. So we're going to get back to them afterwards quickly and more thoroughly in a later video. Now, you might still wonder, what is that even, a nanopublication? And I'm going to show it to you in a minute. But just very quickly, the idea of this decentralized server network is that there are different services on different servers with different functionality. And if you want to know something, if you want to make use of these services, you can contact one of them and try and see whether that works out. But there are always different services that provide you the same functionality. So it's always a whole variety of redundant and replicated services. So that is supposed to give this whole decentralized system its stability. And nanopublications play a very central role. So in a nutshell, nanopublications are just tiny snippets of formally represented information, you could say. So that's the idea, right? So that's why it's supposed to be kind of a variety of services spread out. Now, at the moment, they're mostly in Europe. There's one in South Korea there. There used to be some in the United States. They're at the moment not active anymore, but this kind of constantly evolved and changed. But the Nanopub server network as a whole has been operational all the time for the past 5 years or more. Now, let's have a look at the concrete service. I'll go to this one of the dark yellow ones. So this at np.petapico.org is a good one, but you can try out others. Now, this is a service, as you see here, that is more intended as a kind of an API, so not necessarily directly as something an end user that should deal with, but you can actually go there and browse around and see what it has. You'll see that as a main content, it has just a huge list of nanopublications, or basically links to nanopublications. So you see, here we are on the last page. That's page number 10,895. And on each page, well, this is the last page, so that's not yet full, but each full page has 1,000 entries. So that's how you end up at more than 10 million of these nanopublications. And more are added to the end. So you can publish them. So with this service, you can publish these nanopublications and then retrieve them. And by retrieving, you can here just click on one of them when you click here on Get, and you'll see this representation with kind of the colored boxes that you might have already seen. Now, this is something that's made with these colored boxes a tiny bit more accessible to humans to read, but it's still something that's mainly targeted at machines, right? Something that you should write a program to do something automatically, and end users probably want to have a bit nicer representation than this. But so it will give me the opportunity to introduce to you on a kind of superficial but still technical level what nanopublications are. First of all, what you see in the first line here with this is kind of an RDF prefix, if you know what it is. And this is this also corresponds to the identifier of this nanopublication. You might see here that it also contains a hash value that's actually calculated on the content. So that's part of what makes this decentralized ecosystem viable, that each tiny bit that's in there has a hash, so it can be verified whether it's the correct thing. So thereby you don't need to worry whether you got it from a server that's maybe not trustworthy or you're not sure about, because you can verify the hash. And then if you're looking for this, you can retrieve it and verify it's exactly what you were looking for. Now, nanopublications contain what you see here, and the most important part is the blue part. That's their main content, and the rest is kind of additional information, you could say. The main content is expressed in RDF, as everything in nanopublications. The concrete notation you're seeing here is trig. That's kind of an extension of turtle, which is another RDF language, but it also has graph information, and graphs are basically just these ways to group triples together. Now, I can quickly walk you through this example. It's just a random example I picked that I didn't create myself, but somebody else did. What it does here is sublocal. That is, if you look at the concrete URL it's representing, is a thing within the nanopublication. So a thing that was introduced in this nanopublication. So they introduced something and they say it has a DCT creator. So it has a creator. The creator here is just a string. Maybe that should be rather URIs as well. But anyway, that's what it is here. It has a date. So you might already see or guess here that this is some sort of publication. They give it an identifier, a title. They type it as a research paper. And there's a comment and a quoted text. So they basically introduce this thing and a quote and say, yeah, that's what we describe here, right? So that's kind of the main content that they publish in this nanopublication. Then the provenance, most importantly, contains a reference to the assertion. That always has to be the case. And then it can give additional information about the provenance. Now here they say it was attributed to this person with this ORCID identifier. So these ORCIDs are something that are often used with nanopublications and with the whole ecosystem. If you click on that, you'd see who that was. So this means the assertion, the thing that's described here was done by this person. But then you can go to the publication info. That's the last of the color parts. That contains information about the whole nanopublication. So the red part contains metadata, contains provenance information, you could say, about the blue part. And the yellow part contains metadata, provenance information about the whole thing. So the whole thing we're looking at here. It also has a creator. Oh no, here this is the time, and it has a creator. And it also has a signature. I'm not going to go into any details, but this is digital signature that's calculated also on the whole nanopublication that allows us to verify that this was indeed created by the person who has access to this public key or to the private key this public key belongs to be precise. And if we happen to know which ORCID or which person has access to that, we can make sure that we can be sure that this was actually the person who created this nanopublication. And then there are some references to templates that will become clear later when we look at Nanobench, because as it looks, this nanopublication was created through Nanobench, the tool we're going to look at a bit later. So that's just an example. Well, there's some more up here. The head part, you can basically ignore that, because all it does is it tells us basically that this part is the part that's supposed to be painted blue. This is the red part. This is the yellow part, right? So we've already shown that here. So you don't need to look at, you don't have any additional information up here, but it basically holds the whole nanopublication together. And you can have a look at another example. For example, I could look at the second to last one. So in this case, they're using a pattern to describe scientific findings. That's called the super pattern, where they have to say, okay, there is a subject, an object, a context, a qualifier relation, and overall they state here something that corresponds to this statement, the provenance data expressed, etc. So I'll not go into this statement, but you see there's a statement made in the assertion, and then in the provenance they have now a bit more complicated a trail that they say it was actually created by an activity, and they give more information about the activity. And then down here again, the same. It looks more or less the same in terms of publication info. So that's hopefully should give you an idea what nanopublications are, what they look like. An important part that might already be clear now is that this small snippet of formal information, so of information that's captured with formal semantics in this REF language, this is now treated as a publication of its own, right? It has all the metadata you need to know. You know, who was it, when was it published, how was it, how did it came about. It has an identifier itself that points directly to that, right? If you actually click on this one, this identifier that uses Perl.org, it takes a bit of time possibly because it does a redirect, and it actually redirects to exactly this server we were at already. But you could also find it in case now this server is broken for whatever reason. You could go to the server network and find another server and get it from there, right? Even if the URL maybe points to a place that's broken. Now, that's this. And one more thing I can show you is that if you want to look at it in a different in a different format, you can first also look at it here in trig format. That's the same format, but just without the colored boxes. So if you process that with a tool, that is of course rather what you're looking for. But you can also do n-quads. That's easier to process automatically, but harder to look at. There is XML, so RDF XML. No, that's not actually not RDF XML. I'm sorry, that's tricks, because RDF XML doesn't cover, or does not have support for graphs, so to group triples together. But tricks is a version of XML that does. So if you prefer XML, we can take this. These are all equivalent, right? And also, you're also able to verify the hash with any of these versions. So there's no dependency here. Or JSON-LD is also very popular. You can have it here too. I clicked here on the links that have .txt because then they open normally in the browser, so I could show it. But otherwise, if you click here, then you might be just asked to download it instead of, I couldn't have shown it directly now here. So that's this part. And one last thing I want to show you before I conclude this video, and I'm pointing to the next, is we can go back once more to this Nanopublication Monitor, right? So you have now looked at one of these yellow dots that you see in this world map. And actually, when you publish to one of these yellow dots, and most of them also support publishing, then the other yellow dots, so most of them actually replicate that. So you publish to one of these servers, but then within a minute or so, it's replicated and distributed to the others as well. And at that moment, you can actually say it is published, because even if that server kind of dies and takes your nanopublication with it, it's still available on other parts. So it's then reliably out there in the open. So others can depend on it, link to it, and reuse it later on. The other dots that are not the dark yellow ones are the query nodes of different types, and they don't necessarily have, they're not responsible for storing the data. They just get the data from the yellow nodes, and then they provide query services on top of them. Now you have here, you see what the types are, and they're already a tiny bit self-explanatory maybe. An important service is, of course, the monitor service that you're looking at here right now. That you can also access in a CSV file, by the way, if you want to do that. That's only if you want to access it automatically. And there are two services here. So even if this monitor service is not available at some point, you can find another one instead. And then there are a number of more services down here. Some start with signed minus. So signed nanopub service of type MP Sparkle API. So the signed ones cover obviously only the signed nanopublications, which are just a few tenth of 10,000s or so, whereas all of them, the nanopublications, including the unsigned ones, that's more than 10 million, as you have seen. But so the more recent ones are mostly signed nanopublications, and so often it's fine if you just go to the services, the query services that offer only the service for the signed nanopublications. But otherwise, they're more or less the same, except for the Sparkle API that doesn't exist for the full thing, because that's kind of too easy to break and it's too slow on the whole set. Now, apart from Sparkle, there is also one based on LDF, linked data fragments. We're going to look into that a bit later. Well, if you click on it, you just get a quick description of it. But I actually wanted to click here on the actual service. So, for example, here. So that's what the LDF service looks like. And well, the Sparkle service looks familiar if you know about Sparkle endpoints. And then there's also the Garlic one that looks like this, but there's also a more user-friendly version of that allows you to experiment with it a bit. But that's going to be the topic of one of the later videos. So for now, that's what I wanted to show you here. And in the next videos, in the next 3 videos, basically, we're going to experiment with a particular tool that's called Nanobench that allows you in a more user-friendly way to browse and search these nanopublications and have your own feed and look at other feeds from other people what they've recently published. And it allows you, importantly, to publish nanopublications in a simple template-based way. And then in the end, in the 5th video or so, we're going to come back here and experiment a bit what we can do with these query services. So that was the first video. I hope you have enjoyed it, and check out the next video of this series if you liked it. Thank you.